Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Early Bird anime with Meg and Dan. I am Dan.
And I am Meg.
We took a few weeks off during the holiday season, rested our brains and our Ramblepants. They're nice and primped now, and we are ready to jump back into the new year with a little discussion that is not very little. It's on a titanic scale, you could say.
You could say.
You could say it is the Attack on Titan, someone's favorite show, manga, whatever it is, if I'm not mistaken.
What could give you that idea? Who could you be talking about?
Obviously, I'm talking about, I don't know, you. Anyway, Meg, would you like to give us a little bit of background on the Attack on Titan?
Why, of course, I would love to do that. So, the Attack on Titan, also known as Shingeki no Kyojin manga by Isayama Hajime, began its run in September of 2009. It is currently at 21 volumes and is still ongoing. And the series runs on a monthly basis in Kodansha's Bessatsu Shonen magazine. He had originally pitched it to Weekly Shonen Jump, but they didn't want to accept it unless he changed his art style as well as some story elements, and I bet they are kicking themselves now because it is insanely popular. Kodansha's USA branch is also publishing the North American manga releases. And the first season of the anime is streaming on Crunchyroll for free, so that's a place you can watch it if you haven't already. The anime premiered in spring 2013 from Wit Studio, which is a subset of Production IG. And the anime really boosted the series' popularity to the point where, in America, even people who don't watch anime have watched Attack on Titan. So there have been a number of OVAs and spin-offs, including some expanded adaptations of some of the gag previews from the manga, and an animation of one of the manga's bonus chapters, and also a 2-episode adaptation of the spin-off manga about the ever-popular Levi's backstory. So there's a whole bunch of spin-off series like a middle school AU, a really awful live-action movie adaptation from 2015. There have been a whole bunch of games for a whole bunch of platforms. There was also even a Marvel crossover comic, which had Spider-Man, the Avengers, and Guardians of the Galaxy fighting against some of the notable Titans from the series in New York City. The series has won multiple awards and topped multiple charts, and there were 60 million copies of the manga in print as of September 2016.
It's a lot of manga.
So,
it's a lot of
that's
manga.
a lot of manga.
I didn't know about the Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, it was, the scenario was written by the actual creator of the manga himself.
You mean not Stan Lee?
Nope, not Stan Lee.
Okay, I've got a friend who has some beef with Stan Lee or something. Oh, maybe that's why he had beef with him. I was like, why is he talking about Stan Lee all of a sudden? Anyway.
Anyway, please tell us a brief summary. I think we're also going to try to keep spoilers to a minimum here.
Yeah. I will try to keep spoilers to a minimum. If you are watching this, though, watch the show first. All right. The year is 850, and the last remnants of humanity live sequestered away within a set of 3 gigantic walls. And there's a very good reason for this, as the land outside of the walls are populated by gigantic humanoid creatures that have been called the Titans. And it appears that their only purpose in life, or their life, is to devour humankind. Much of the populace is content to live out their existence in a relative peace, as the walls have never been breached in a century since they were constructed. But Aaron Yeager, a rambunctious 10-year-old living in a bait town of the outermost wall, refuses to become complacent. He and his best friend, Armin Arlert, dream of exploring the world together, while Aaron's adoptive sister, Mikasa Ackerman, is compelled to protect them. But tragedy strikes when a titan bigger than any they've ever seen appears and destroys the gate, leading to a massive loss of territory and human life. Consumed with rage and grief, Aaron swears revenge on the Titans. The trio enlists in the military to learn how to fight back and ultimately join the Survey Corps, the only branch of the military that leaves the confines of the walls to fight the Titans on their own turf. But the man versus monster situation is not as simple as it may have seemed. So Meg, what did you think of Attack on Titan, besides being your most favoritist show of all time?
Oh my gosh, where do I even begin? It is my most favoritist show of all time.
There you go.
I watched this for the first time when it aired about 4 years ago. I have been unhealthily obsessing over it ever since then. So I guess I'll start with first impressions and just my general opinion of it. aside from the fact that I love it. So the first thing that I noticed about the series was the atmosphere. The animation is gorgeous, and there's so much detail put into the lighting and the texturing in the art direction, and I don't think I've ever noticed another anime use line weight quite the way this one does. If they have, then it hasn't been to an extent that I've actually noticed it, but it really gives the series a unique look to it. And the music they chose was absolutely perfect to convey this atmosphere of like oppressive hopelessness and helplessness and just complete dread, and really drives home like the powerlessness of humanity. And I get emotional over anime all the time, but usually that's a bit later on in a series after, you know, the plot has progressed a good amount. But this hit me really hard right from the first episode, and I think part of it, aside from the atmosphere of it, is the fact that every character is just so human that I attached to them really fast, even if the character was only in an episode or two, you know? Yeah, so we can get into some other stuff. What were your first impressions and some of your thoughts and whatnots?
Yes, I had avoided this show for a while, not because I didn't want to watch it, but there was so much activity around me as far as people watching the show go and people talking about it, and I just didn't want to be a part of it. On the off chance that I did watch it, I wanted my mind to be sort of clear, and a lot of people were loving it, and it almost seemed unhealthy at certain points.
What are you talking about?
Not you, I'm talking about other people. But it was very extreme devotion to this show. It was like, this is the be all end all. This is what anime's been leading up to. And maybe it is. I actually really liked it. It was a very interesting show because of its, I guess, range, you could say, because it has a lot of very, as you said, down pessimistic themes, and just the way that the characters look. The way the Titans look is terrifying, but for me, the biggest appeal of the show was like the world they were living in, and also how the characters were interacting with one another. And you get so much interesting, good themes throughout it, like the complexity of the human race. Like there's like in this show, there is no black and white. There is no cut dry right and wrong decision.
Absolutely.
Every person, in a way, is justified. You could say they're less justified or more justified, but you could also say they're wrong in thinking this way or that way. And I think one of the parts that disturbed me the most, and that I liked, I mean, no one likes being disturbed, but I found that the Titans' design being humanoid and naked humans and of giant stature was so smart, because as humans, we are on the top of the food chain, and there's, in theory, nothing above us. But now there is, and it's just a bigger human.
Yeah.
And also, it's like they're dumb. Or, you know, perceived to be dumb, because they don't think, it appears, and they just eat without any hesitation.
It's just on pure instinct.
Yeah, and they kind of look goofy sometimes when they run.
Oh, they're hilarious.
Disturbing in its own right, because it's like, how could something that looked so stupid, it has this stupid grin, be capable of such carnage, and in the lore of the show, being the reason that humanity has had to wall itself off and is only numbering in the millions anymore. It's like, this is nuts. How did we get here? But also, one of the other things I found really interesting was this idea of free will and confinement, whereas the characters want to be able to do whatever they want, whether they are the main characters or just whatever, the peasants or the people living in the walls. But they're living in the walls. It's like, can you really do whatever you want when you are living in a wall? Like,
right.
No. And that's some of the motivation for some characters. And it's really just a very interesting world to study. And one of my favorite parts about the show too was in the intersperses between, I guess, episodes, you'd get this sort of flashcard and say things we could share at the moment, and it would say like these facts, like these are the scales of a Titan compared to a human, this is the history of the gas canisters and the belts that the people use to attack the Titans and stuff. I was like, this is a really interesting world that I just want to like sink my teeth into, and just like, I would read a textbook about this world. That's how interesting this show was. I'm
glad it succeeded there. For like, it appealed to your history major instincts.
Not even that. It was just like, it just felt like a mystery to me. Like, I gotta get to the bottom of this. I need to know the answers. And the thing is that really made me keep going and watching it was that the people in the show don't know the answers either.
Oh yeah.
Almost nothing is known about these Titans or why they're doing this. And the other thing that I found really interesting was that it's like, oh, it's been a century since the last Titan attack or since the walls were raised. And in historical terms, that's like a pretty short amount of time.
That's like 2 generations.
It's about 2 to 3 generations. And obviously the people who were probably alive when the walls were raised are dead for whatever reason, most likely. But you would think, oh, well, there's probably some documents. There's probably, oh, my grandpa told me and then I told my grandkids or something. But no, almost nobody has a recollection or this knowledge of what happened outside of the world or any information regarding the Titans. And that's just so interesting because it also fuels these characters that are extremely likable because of their complexities. Like, you could say, oh, I don't like this character because it doesn't, but it's only because you wouldn't like that character. It would be on you that you wouldn't like it. There never is a case of a bad character, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Like, every character has their flaws, but there's something I think that you can sympathize with in all of them. Even characters that end up being placed into an antagonistic role, which we won't get too much into, but you see aspects of them that you say, I can tell that there's more to you than what I'm seeing, and it makes you, it does, like you were saying, it makes you want to learn more about them as well, and see, like, what made you do this? What made you go here? And I guess we can talk about some of the main characters.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good time too, and I'll let you helm that discussion.
Right. I think for now I'll just talk about the main trio of Eren, Armin, and Mikasa, because there are so many, and I could just go on forever about all of this. So, definitely something that I like about this series is that it's classified into the shonen genre. It's running in a shonen magazine, but it tends to kind of throw off a lot of the tropes and stereotypes that you would see in a lot of other shonen series. So you have Eren, who's your main character, and he's brash and he's spirited and he's got a really strong sense of justice. And, you know, he seems really stereotypical at first, but that changes really quickly. And I think most of the time, other shonen characters are motivated by stuff like, I want to get stronger, or I want to find my absent father figure, or I want to protect so-and-so, or I want to make such and such right again. And the root of Eren's motivation is kind of similar to that, in that ultimately his goal is to see the world with Armin, to go to the ocean. And I think what's interesting is that he often lets that goal get kind of clouded by his rage and his self-professed desire to kill all of the Titans. He's constantly getting kind of sidetracked by that and consumed by that. And what I also think is interesting is that Eren himself is a pretty weak guy. Like, he's not the weakest by no means, but he's really average. And however big he talks about killing Titans, he's kind of forced to face up to the reality that it's not as easy to do as it is to say. And even when he's in military training, there are times where he fails, and he works really, really hard in order to pass and in order to do well. And even then he fails. He fails a lot, and he fails really hard. And I don't want to get too much into spoiler territory here, but I know there were some people who were disappointed about a certain twist that happened in the plot because they felt like it made the story seem cheap. But I disagree with that, because I think in a lot of ways it doesn't really make that much of a difference for Eren. For humanity it matters absolutely, but not for Eren himself, because he still needs other people, and not in the typical my friends give me super strength type sense, but in the sense that he actually cannot accomplish his goals without the work that other people do for him and without the sacrifices that other people make for him. And Eren himself is aware of that fact, and he is willing to put aside his personal feelings to work together with others for the sake of a common goal. He's not going to be like, I'm going to do my thing because my feelings are more important than humanity.
Yeah, and I would like to add that it's extremely, for me at least, refreshing to see a character who this is a shonen manga, I assume,
Yeah.
and a shonen anime. I don't call it shonen, I call it fighty stuff, you know. It's all about people punching each other in the face, who can punch me the strongest or who can shoot the best spirit gun. And you know, there's place for that, but a lot of the times the anime I watched growing up was very much focused on how much can I train? How much can I beat people up, you know? And that's fine. But this is a very interesting case of the main character. Like you said, he isn't tough, but also that there's a lot of failure on not just his part, but on lots of characters. You could say humanity has failed, that they'd had to build a giant wall to keep these things out, and there are all these developments that go on throughout the show, and the characters are talking about, is this a success, is this a failure? And it's just very interesting to watch something that is mired in failure, and yet these people are still like, we gotta keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
Eren is a great character of someone who maybe through his own stubbornness and bullheadedness
Yeah.
rises to like this great, like, he's almost crazy because he has these unrealistic goals,
Mm-hmm.
but he 100% believes he can accomplish them,
Right.
even though it's like very impossible that he's like going to kill all the Titans like he says he will.
Mm-hmm.
He is crazy enough that he believes that.
To an extent. I do think that he is aware of his own limits, though.
Yeah, which is also great. It's very sobering for him when when certain things happen to him.
Definitely, yeah.
There are other characters in this trio because, you know, it's a trio.
It is a trio. So I suppose I will move on to Armin, who I will try not to be too biased in this description because he is my favorite. He is the smart one with big dreams and very little confidence. And physically he's on the feminine side. He's not as strong as his peers, but his character highlights the fact that there are other types of strength other than just punching people in the face. And he's not so good at fighting, but he has a really clear head, a really good ability to grasp a situation, fantastic judgment, a really quick mind. And he's so loyal and determined and true to himself, and he will do anything to stand by his friends. And he struggles with the thought that he's a burden and that he's not good enough to call himself equal with Eren and Mikasa. And here's something that I remember when we were talking about Berserk. We were talking about shonen series and a lot of works in general, and the tendency to take an effeminate male character and turn them into a rival figure or an antagonistic figure. And that is absolutely not the case here, as much as the anime director wants to skew him into some dictator. Armin is a crucial pillar of the trio, and he knows Eren better than anyone. And he was the source of Eren's dream to see the outside world, and that is the one thing that keeps getting Eren up again and again, when even appealing to his rage doesn't always work. I love him so much.
I could not tell. I was having trouble getting sincerity from that, you know. I just no, but you definitely like him a lot, but I do too. His introduction to the show is a very interesting character introduction because I think I can say this. It happens in like the 10th minute of the first episode or something, but he's being beaten on by some bullies.
Oh yeah.
And at first you don't know why they're beating him up, but they're just like, you're wrong, and they're just kind of punching him, and you think, oh, he's the wimp character. He's getting beaten up. You know, these Eren and Mikasa have to go rescue him. Even though he's being beaten up, he calls out to them. He's just like, you guys are no longer using your words. You're beating me up. In your own way, you've already admitted defeat to me and are proving that I'm right. And the bullies are all like, what? Shut up, you know, like. I thought that was an extremely awesome character trait. He's brave, not in the sense that he's going to take on the Titans like some of the other characters would, like stalwart, like forward unto dawn, you know, but he's like, he had guts to stick up for himself in that way. He's still being kicked in the face or whatever, but like, I don't know, I probably would have just, you know, turtled myself and pretended that I was dead or something. That's why I really liked him. You know, I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, he's a wimp character. He's a blah blah blah. He's drawn femininely." You know, I thought he was a girl when I first saw a still of him, and I'm sorry about that to anyone out there who's offended, but but he's a really interesting character because of his. He sticks to his guns in a way that you don't normally see.
Definitely, yeah.
And I guess segueing from him, you have Mikasa, who, on the other hand, while Armin will allow himself to get beaten up but, you know, talk back, Mikasa will not let anyone even get close to her because they'll probably be dead by the time they are standing next to her.
Oh yeah, so Mikasa is the strong one. And can I just say that, usually the girl in the trio is the smart one, but it is so nice to see a series where a female character is one of the most physically powerful people in the whole main cast and like pretty much in the whole scope of their world.
And I think I'd just like to quickly add, I think the reason that is also very satisfying is that in the world of Titan killing, it's not about how beefy and bulky you are. It's all about finesse.
Yeah.
It's all about how nimble are you, how quick, how your spatial awareness. So it doesn't pay to be this stupid juice head.
Yeah.
If you're a super lanky guy with good arm length or whatever, but also great spatial awareness, you're going to be the best Titan killer ever.
Right.
And Mikasa is just excels at that.
Oh my god, she is so skilled and she is so competent to the point where a superior officer describes her as literally worth 100 other soldiers. And I also really appreciate kind of that other gender trope subversion where she's like the calm one for the most part. She doesn't wear her heart on the sleeve, but instead Eren and Armin are the emotional ones.
Yeah.
So she was taken in by Eren's family, and she serves as a kind of guardian to Eren to the point of overprotectiveness in a lot of ways. And they butt heads a lot because of that. But it's understandable seeing that Eren is basically her last remaining family, and she really doesn't want to lose him. And it's also somewhat justified by the fact that she is way stronger than him and way more capable of protecting him than he is.
Oh yeah, not even just protecting, but she can just get stuff done.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like in the beginning, like he fell asleep while they were supposed to be like collecting firewood.
And she just does
and then,
it all.
When they come home, Aaron's mom's just like, "Wow, did you do this or did Mikasa do it all again?" I'm like, "Oh, it's someone's not pulling their weight around the house."
Yeah, and I'm really sad that again the anime messing stuff up and really trying to push on like making her really super doting on Eren, particularly in the later episodes is where it starts to diverge a bit from the manga. And I'm sorry, I have a really big bias because I'm all caught up on the manga with this one. But it's kind of a disservice to her character because part of her arc is about like learning to trust other people and also learning to live for herself and, of course, about being a complete badass. And I know you had expressed a little bit of irritation.
Yeah, just a little bit because while she is an extreme badass, there are certain scenes, and I'm kind of upset with myself that I can't really think of a particular scene at the moment, but there are scenes where it sort of feels like she's being she's defending her man, I guess you could say.
Right.
Like there are times where, it's like, Eren, get behind me, or like she will stand up when so-and-so says a comment. It's not gonna ruin my perception of the character.
Right.
But I'd say my only complaint of the series is that certain deliveries of lines seemed a little bit heavy-handed or a little bit too like grandiose, but the whole show is like an epic grandiose adventure, so I can understand if the line is crossed every once in a while. But
yeah.
Other than that, like the way these characters all interact within just this trio is very interesting because they all serve a different purpose to one another. And it's like Eren and Armin can look to Mikasa as like the heavy of their group. Like, okay, we'll be pretty safe as long as she's around.
Oh yeah.
Mikasa and Eren can look to Armin as like, okay, as long as he's around, all the plans we make are going to be pretty foolproof.
Right.
And once again, the interesting thing about Eren is he doesn't really have much to offer physically. Like, oh, what aspect do you have to offer? And it's not really like, oh, he's the toughest, he's the bravest, but he's the link. He's the reason these two are friends with,
Right.
And he has more going on to him than just this rage of an angry child. He actually has these emotions that both characters can connect to.
Well, he's really passionate. I love seeing all of his emotion. I love how emotional of a main character he is.
Oh yeah, and his character introduction is he's taking a nap and he wakes up and he's crying and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
How many shows open with your main character crying?
Your main male protagonist crying.
And he's like, I don't know why I'm crying. The other thing is Eren is able to inflict inspiration or whatever emotion onto other people in his cadet group. And that is also a very interesting thing, because some people are like, he's that stupid idiot that gives me hope. Like, some people hate him because they give him hope. Or he gives them hope. And some people look up to him because of that.
He's not stupid. Like, he's just normal. And in a bad situation, but he's doing the best he can. One other thing that I wanna just mention about the series that I'm really impressed by is the complete lack of any kind of sexualization and fan service of any of the characters.
I'm very happy about that.
Oh my gosh. In a lot of shonen series that I've seen, it's been like, okay, you know, this fan service of, you know, a bunch of jiggling boobs and stuff isn't going to make me hate the whole show, but I kind of have to just pretend I didn't see it and move on with my life. But this doesn't have any of that. Like, all of the female characters wear the exact same uniforms as all of the male characters, and like, there's actual presence and diversity in the types of female characters who appear, and they are treated as actual people. And there's so many really interesting ones, and some of them don't really get their chance to shine in season 1, but I'm just so happy that I don't have to worry that there's going to be like a hot spring episode where all of the guys are trying to peep into the girls' baths, or an episode about Mikasa feeling like she needs to get a makeover because she's not as pretty as Krista or anything. Like, I'm so happy there's none of that.
And at the same time, the characters still sort of look at the male characters look at some of the female characters with still some interest. But whereas like any other anime that you were describing that would be like, that would do that, and then they'd have a scene of that, it would be annoying. But I sort of like it when and it's very few and far between, but sometimes, you know, they'll talk about, oh, such and such character is kind of like cute. And to me, it's like, it's a little bit of like injecting a little bit of human emotion into this very desolate, stark world. Like, at some point throughout the series, like, a couple guys they see this girl, and the girl says something, and she's like, what's going on? And then the camera jumps to like these 3 guys kind of just looking at her open-eyed, and they're all thinking different things in their head, and one person's like, she's an angel.
Yeah.
And then like it gets to the last guy's like, marry me. And it's like, that's actually cute. And it's not also like they're actively pursuing these girls or like putting them down because they're girls.
Absolutely not. Like, Mikasa graduates the top of the entire class, and at no point does anyone ever make a comment like, oh, Jean, Eren, you got beat by a girl. How does that feel? Like, no, nobody ever comments on that. Ever.
The top 10 is probably 50-50 if I'm remembering right. Like,
it would be
half girl,
pretty close,
half boy,
actually.
at least. If not, I think maybe like 6-4, still in the girl range, being the more. And that's like, it's impressive. And that once again is one of my appreciations that the world is building, where it's like, we live in a world where we're not going to say, hey, only the guys can apply to be a part of the military. They need everyone they can.
Oh yeah, they can't afford to
like. And there's still sexism in this world and this and that going on, and you'll see that in episodes, and I don't want to give any particulars away, but they live in a world where they can't be picky and choosy about who they're letting into the military.
Yeah.
And the military is so rigorous that they're like, okay, you know what? If someone's not cut out to be in the military, they'll quit or die.
Yeah.
Anyone who else can stay is obviously good enough to be in the military. Let's get everyone we possibly can, and you get that in the series. Like like you said, that one general was just like, Mikasa's worth 100 of my best soldiers.
Yep.
It's like, holy crap! Don't mess with her. That's my only advice I can give to you. Don't mess with her.
Indeed.
And some people try to, and they dearly pay the price.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And I just briefly, I'd like to just jump to one other character who isn't part of the main cast.
He's a pretty important one, though.
But he's an important member. I'd say he's a secondary character, definitely. His name's John. I can't remember what district he's from, because there's the 3 walls.
He's from Trost, actually.
He's from Trost, okay. But they're, you know, when the trio joins the cadets, they meet a bunch of people from all different walks of life. And one of the guys that we meet in this lineup of cadets, his name is John. And he is questioned by the drill instructor. He's like, what branch of the military do you want to be? And he's like, I want to be in the military police. And the guy says, why? He's like, because I want a cushy job where I can sit around and do nothing.
And not ever have to interact with Titans.
And that's like his first real interaction we have with the character.
Mm-hmm.
And initially I could see a lot of people, and maybe myself too, I can't really remember, looking at that and being like, you jerk. All these people are here willing to die. But then you have that thought, it's like, well, can you blame him? Like, you can't blame people for not wanting to die. And there's still a role the military police play in the world. You find out later on some things aren't cracked up as they're to be in various of the military branches. But he says, I don't want to die. And his goal is just kind of putting enough effort in to get to that position. He doesn't want anything to do with the Survey Corps, doesn't want anything to do with the engineers. And you slowly see his opinions and perceptions of what's going on change after various things happen in the show. And he turns out to be one of the most dynamic characters I've ever really seen in anything.
Definitely.
In a way, his sort of attitude and resemblance reminded me of Lad from Bakano, but he's definitely not Lad from Bakano.
Oh, definitely not.
And one of the other things is he has doubts about things, and some people are like, oh, are you really gonna do such and such? Like, he has doubts in his military commander at one point, and someone says, are you really gonna try to like rise up against him? He's like, no, I'm just angry. This is just normal stuff. And that alone is a lot of growth from the beginning character you've seen, where he's like, I just want a cushy job and not to do anything.
Absolutely, and he has to, question his own choices and his own qualifications, and
it turns into an ethics and morality thing. And
yeah.
This world is enraptured with ethics and morality.
And Jean is just one example of all of these really great multifaceted characters. And season 2 is finally coming out after like 4 years. It's going to be coming out this April, and
Has it really been 4 years?
Yes. I'm really hoping that the director will try to, stay true to the manga with this, because there are some really great moments and some really great characters who will get to see, hopefully, like, show all of these other sides to themselves that we didn't really have time to focus on in the first season. And I also hope, of course, that they don't try to pretend that Armin is not relevant to the plot.
Yeah, that would be a shame, I suppose. He is a good character. All the characters, as we've said before, are very good, and there are characters that we haven't even talked about. And you have probably any, knowing of the Attack on Titan character universe, you're probably like, why are they talking about this character right now? As you said, everyone's grandma's favorite character.
Levi. Well, I think that about wraps it up, unless you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I was just going to say there's really very few flaws that I had that at least I saw. The only thing that I saw was maybe like, I didn't really like the execution of this, but I still really like the episode overall. Or at times, like, and this is an anime thing, so it's a nitpick. It's not like an actual criticism where it's like a lot of characters give speeches and like lectures to other characters, and this isn't any type that I've watched, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I'm kind of bored of it. But it's a nitpick, so I really don't have anything to say. I loved the art, and initially I left this out of my background, but the art is what sort of made me not want to watch the show too, because it was so beautiful, and I didn't realize I was watching Attack on Titan when I first saw a clip of it, and a guy got gulped by a Titan, and I was like, it's so beautiful and disgusting at the same time. I'm gonna throw up.
I can understand how that would be unpleasant if it caught you by surprise.
It definitely caught me by surprise, but the show is great, and as I said, it's got a lot of room for speculation and theories, and certain episodes are like my favorite because they just focus on what do we know? What do we know about the Titans? What can we gather?
Right. Well, that's all they can focus on.
That's all they can focus on, and I love it. It's like a mystery that I'm actively a part of. I'm on the same page as them instead of like this many steps ahead.
Oh yes. Any issues that I have with it are more about where the anime kind of diverges from the manga. You could probably call that a personal bias, but whatever. Otherwise, I highly recommend it. It has fantastic characters, fantastic atmosphere, a really compelling plot, and absolutely gorgeous animation sequences. I don't think we actually mentioned that, but oh my lord, like watching these characters fly about through the series with their they use this thing called 3D maneuver gear that they use to fight the Titans that enables them to have, like, you know, air mobility and be quick and whatnot. There are some absolutely incredible bits of character animation in there, and I get actual adrenaline rushes and heart palpitations watching it. So I very highly recommend going through this series if you like that stuff, if you can handle the blood. I also very highly recommend reading the manga as well, because
just for perspective, you know, it's like, you know, you'd watch this movie and then you find out there's a book. Can you really say you've got the gist of this story without considering the source material, or, you know, anything? Maybe this did it better than this. It's up for you to decide, but I still think it's almost like you never have to do anything, but you can never truly call yourself like an aficionado and like someone who appreciates this piece of media without seeing it to an end. Or you could. Maybe I'm just a weirdo, and I am, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up, as Meg said. If you liked our discussion, you know, it would help if you gave a thumbs up. I actually don't know if that helps. I just like the praise. You know, I need my reassurance.
It's nice to get some feedback.
Yes, and if you leave a little feedback, I'll definitely read it, and then maybe I'll comment it back or something. No guarantees. All 17 of you out there, I'm counting on you.
Oh yeah.
And if there's anyone you know that might enjoy this sort of podcast, I know this is a new year, and we're going to try to talk about more diverse things, I think, in the next coming weeks. There's some movies I've picked that I'd really like to talk about, and also some maybe discussions that are not necessarily linked to just the show itself that we'd like to talk about. And I understand this isn't like a comedy podcast or whatever, but if you think someone would like to hear this sort of discussion about cartoons and anime, you know, tell them, hey, there's this show out there. And make sure you get our name right, because that would also help out.
Probably.
Yes, but we have been the Discount Ramblepants.
And remember, I'm just going to forego the quote for today, because I just want to say that I'm really pumped for Season 2.
Season 2. Season 2.
Season 2.